Welcome back to the Tomarosa. We are going to do a review of our experience with once a day milking today.
I should also note it's still winter. Okay. Yes, it's still winter. We switched to once a day milking about 6 weeks before we wanted to dry off the cows. So we thought we'd give a review on how that went and our thoughts and what that might mean for our plans next year.
So to start, let's just review why we went to once a day milking. In general, milk cows are milked twice a day, usually about 12 hours apart. And in some systems, they drop down to once a day milking for a couple of reasons. One could be that it's later in the lactation, and so milk production falls anyway. And the other, one of the biggest other reasons is it saves on your work and your time and your money and your effort put into milking the cows. So it's a balance between how much milk can you get and all the costs of producing that milk.
When we research stuff for our cows, we look to New Zealand research a lot. Our cows are New Zealand genetics, but beyond that, they do a lot of the things that we want to do. So a lot of grass-based dairies. They do once a day milking. It's quite popular down there. And so we use a lot of their research in our decision making.
This year we decided to milk twice a day all the way through Christmas and weaning of our last calf. And so we didn't really go to once a day milking too late in the lactation.
How did the cows perform on once a day milking? The transition, I think they all transitioned pretty well. They were confused, I think, that first evening when we didn't milk. We were already in a late lactation phase, so their milk production wasn't super high anyway. The only real trouble we had was with Buttercup because of her milk allergy, which isn't really related to once a day milking. She is an anomaly and we love her. She's special. And if you don't know what we're talking about, we'll leave a link to a video we made all about it in the description. But other than Buttercup's milk allergy, I think the cows performed great. You know, like I said, they were a little confused at the beginning, but they adapted quickly. When folks are thinking about once a day milking, one of the first questions they have, and this is one of the first questions we had, was what's it going to do to production? We'd done some research. The number that seemed to get thrown around a lot out there was to expect about a 20% drop in production. So we had that number in mind going into it. Now, bearing in mind that we are 100% grass-fed and we're already in later lactation, we're averaging about 18 pounds of milk per cow per day. When we went ahead and shifted to once a day milking, and we didn't change anything else as far as what we were feeding or how much we were feeding, when we made the shift, we lost 3%, which we were very happy about. We expected a much greater drop. And I think that 20% number comes from herds that are milked at once a day over the entire lactation versus us who we only milked once a day for the last 6 weeks. But milking once a day was great for us. We loved it. The cows did great on it. We used half as much energy, I'm talking electricity, energy for cooling, half as much water, half as much chemicals, and half as much labor for milking. It gave us a lot more free time in the evenings, especially here in the winter when it's dark so early. We really enjoyed that. So for us, on production side of things, once a day milking was really a success. I just wanted to emphasize how important records are in keeping dairy cows. So just a few examples of the records we keep. We have our daily milk record, which we weigh every cow every day, so we know what milk. I have a calendar I keep here in the milk house where I just write everything that happens that day. If I do anything to the cows, if I observe anything, anything I can think of gets on the calendar. We have production records, so we know how much we're processing. So yeah, good records, very important to keep.
We're going to talk now about milk quality. Going to once a day milking, there are a couple of things we expected. One, an increase in butter fat, and that did happen. Before switching to once a day milking, we averaged about 5.5% butter fat. Once we switched to once a day milking, we increased to 6.5% butter fat, and that is some creamy milk. And the grocery store whole milk is 3.25%. So it's like twice what's in the grocery store. It's delicious. The other thing that we expected was an increase in somatic cell count, and we've talked about that before on our farm. SCC is a way to keep track of what's going on in the udder and if there's any infections or anything you need to worry about. And why would that go up with once a day milking? Well, when you're only milking once a day, milk is in the udder longer, and so that can increase possible SCC counts. And there's a couple of ways to check for that. One is physical examination. So when you're milking the cow, you're able to touch the udder, see if there's any firmness in the udder, or when you strip out the udder before you start milking, are there any flakes or anything else? That's a way to check for clinical mastitis. But before you can actually see or feel anything, you can do another test called the California mastitis test. And this, you just mix some of this when you strip the milk out of the udder, swirl it around, and depending on how much it thickens, it will tell you if something possibly is going on. Another thing you can do is send in milk samples, and we have done that. We send our samples to DHIA, which is Dairy Herd Improvement Association. You might use them, you might use it at the lab, but they send back lots of different information, including somatic cell count. Before we switched to once a day milking, in general, on average, we were under 150 somatic cell count. And that would indicate, plus what we see with their health, that they are doing well and that they don't have mastitis. After we switched to once a day milking, we did see an increase in somatic cell count, but nothing that we were concerned about. Our counts went up in the 200s, and that is simply because we are later in lactation for our cows and the milk is in the udder longer. But we did not see any other indications of mastitis or anything else that would cause concern for the quality of the milk.
One of the things that we expected to see was a change in how much food they consumed when we went to once a day milking, but we really didn't. They're hungry cows, and you know, it is winter time, so they need more energy to stay warm and such, but they really didn't change how much they were eating.
Well, that is our review of how once a day milking worked for us this year.
For what the future holds, I think next year we might try going to once a day milking a little earlier. Yes, yes, she says.
I mean, the benefits for us definitely outweighed the negatives, and it's just a balancing act. Anything you do for your farm, you just have to figure out what works best for you. You have anything else you want to add?
Anything from the peanut gallery back there? Thanks for joining us here on the Tomarosas. We talked about our transition into once a day milking. We really liked it. We're going to do it again.
And if you have any questions or comments, leave them below and we'll do the best that we can.
I'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bye.
I'm a busy farmer. Busy farmer. What's going on here? Junk mail, junk mail, junk mail. Moses.
Can you still see the cows?
I think so.
Okay.